As quilters and creators, we are always looking for inspiration for our next idea, for our next quilt. Maybe it's a pattern or fabric or a technique we haven't tried before. I'm Lea Louise from Inspired Quilting by Lea Louise, and I'm joining Moda Fabrics in their Blockhead series, Quilt Along. Oh my goodness, you are going to love this. Every week a new pattern, and I'm going to show you what I make, and I hope you're going to try it too. Together we are going to learn a lot. So let's go ahead and get started. I already have 2 blocks to share with you. Here are my first 2 blocks for the Blockhead 5 series, and we're working on group number 2. I have block 1 and 2, and I'm just going to show you quickly today how to make these blocks. This is the first one called Dream Big, and it's kind of a star and a star. I really like how it worked out. And I'm using low volume for my backgrounds in these blocks. I think that'll be a lot of fun. And this one, I just wanted to show you, we have half square triangles as well as the flying geese. And so those are primarily the blocks you're using there. Now the second block, called the All Stars, is strictly the half square triangles, and it's a lot of fun. I really like the way we get this woven pattern. So today we're going to go ahead and look at how to make these blocks. I'll include the link for you so you can find out where to download your copies, and we'll continue this every week until we get through the entire series, which will probably take a couple months. So let's go ahead and get started. I want to show you how to do this. If you haven't looked at or downloaded the first pattern yet, this is what it is. It's a PDF document, and it's very easy to download and print. We've got the layout on the front with all the dimensions for the block pieces, plus you can do your patches or your swatches of the fabric. Now, I made some notes in there of kind of the colors, the background, etc., and that's page 1. Then on page 2, it starts with the instructions, how to do the piecing, and there's half square triangles and flying geese. I like that they're doing the no waste flying geese in this. That's going to be fun. And there's more instructions on that, and then assembling the block. And then here's something that I really appreciate on the last page. Oh, there it is a page of blank quilt blocks, and I sort of went through and I started from the bottom for whatever reason, but for me it was easier to know, okay, this is going to be one block, which is going to be light, which is going to be dark, and then that helped me to fill out this section as to what I'm going to use for colors. So I'm sure that's far more detailed initially, but not having done this before, it sort of helps me put a plan together. Now, this block can be done in either 6 or 12-inch finished block. You can make one or the other or both. There's, like I said, there's no rules, there's no commitment other than just following along and watching some fun quilts being made. And this goes through, I think, about May. And I'm not exactly sure how many blocks there are, maybe April. But then once we're done, everybody puts them together and says, oh, hey, look at this. So a lot of the folks doing this, the designers who are coming up with the blocks, are using specific collections of fabric. And it's generally fabrics they've designed or in their shop or whatever the case may be. I'm going scrappy because, as you can see, I have a lot of fabric I need to use. Now, this will be great for the 6-inch block. I pulled this bucket out, and I noticed it's mostly all strips, 2 inches or less. And so anything bigger than that, I'm kind of moving over to the other bucket. And these I will hang on to. You remember the log cabin we did in summer of 22? And sewing all the strips together and then just making these wild and crazy log cabins. Oh my goodness. These are some of those strips that are left over. I've used a lot, but there's still some here. And plus pieces that I trimmed off, quilts when after I quilted it and ready to bind. So there's all sorts of stuff in here that I need to go through. Now, this one is probably going to be my best bet. I find that there's some bigger pieces in here. These are basically anything that didn't make it for the charm packs. So if these weren't 5-inch by 5-inch, then they're in this pile. So I should be able to find quite a bit of fabric in here that I can use. Lots of leftovers from lots of different things. And then I have some 2-inch strips as well. So that also means I'm going to use small rulers. So I have my 6-inch square. I have my 2x8 rectangle. And I think this is my favorite, my little 2.5-inch. Can you see that right there? Little 2.5-inch square. So that's going to work out well. Now, I did decide my background is going to be low volume fabric. So I have these buckets. Now this has some, but it looks like it's more pieces that have been pre-sewn and or staged for something else, and a lot of, what do I want to say, 5-inch squares here. This looks more like my scrappy pile. I do have some fat quarters in here, a little bit of yardage. So I'm just going to start digging. My goal in doing all this is not just finding for what I want to make these blocks, is kind of sorting things out. So if it's fat quarters, large pieces, yardage, I'll have it in one piece, and then all the smaller pieces will go in another. So instead of having it divided into two. So as I go along and I'm pulling fabric for each block every week, then I can also sort through what I have. So that's going to be double duty. So let me find the fabric that I want, and I'm going to get started on my blocks. So this is my 12-inch block, and I'm going to kind of show you step by step how each piece is made. So the center is a square and a square, and we're using the sort of stitch and fold method. So we take a smaller square with a line down the center, and we sew it along that line, and then we fold it out, and we end up with a square and a square. But the other thing that I did is, if you'll notice here, there's where I sewed on the line, and then I sewed about 1/2 inch away. So when I cut this, I'm not going to lose that. Instead, I'm going to gain some little half square triangles. And so this is the extra piece right here. And by cutting that, by sewing it first and then cutting it, I have some extra small half square triangles that I can probably use in another block that's coming up. So at this point, what I'm going to do is just cut across here. There's my extra, and we'll do the same here. There's my extra, and now I'm going to press this out right here. And there's my center block. So this is not for this block at all. It's just going to be something I'll set aside. All right, now let's take a look at our flying geese. So what we're going to do is take our large square, and we're going to add 2 of the smaller squares on here. We've drawn a line, and they basically will go from one end to the other. So we'll put one here and a second one here, and we're going to sew on each side of that line. When that's done, we're going to cut it apart, and we get 2 pieces that look like this. One square and the second square. Then when we cut it in half, we press it open. Now this is where we're going to actually get our individual flying geese, because I'm going to take this square with the line and put that right here. And I want to make sure that this all lines up evenly, and you see how these points right there are in the center. That's going to show you where your seam line is. Now, I do have some tutorials on flying geese if you need a little more information than this, and I will link that up above. And so this is what it looks like after you sew one side and then turn around and come back the other side. Now, when I cut my threads, I do snip off that little dog ear corner. It just sort of helps. And then once this is sewn, I'm going to come in and I will cut this. Let me get this right here. And there we are. So we have our 4 flying geese. Now these are going to go on the outer edge of the block. These are the ones for the inside. So I will have flying geese here. And let's see, I think I just kind of go around like this. There, I'm trying not to get them side by side. There we go. So we have 2 blues and 2 turquoise. That works out really well. You can see when I did this flying geese block, each of my individual squares were a different color. Now I made them all sort of a mid-tone blue to turquoise, and then what I did is, you just saw as I was able to lay them around the center and get 2 blues, 2 turquoise, and that works out really good. Then we use just a background. Now I'm going low volume. So I have some low volume white with just a little bit of a yellow line drawing of some florals. And so that looks real pretty there. And then the next thing we're going to do is get our next set of these are, I can say it, half square triangles. And so I have these in pairs. So I used different ones for each corner, which just kind of makes it interesting. And here's how I made the half square triangle. I sewed the line down the center of the lightest fabric, put them right sides together, and sewed a 1/4 inch on each side. And then I can just come over here and cut them in half. And when I cut these open and press them, there are my half square triangles. And so I'm just going to kind of play around with how these will all lay out. Now, the other thing is we have another row of flying geese here. So I'm going to take those. Oh, here's my outside blocks. So I have these that go out here. Again, the low volume. So this is my flying geese that I showed you. And then here are 2 that are complete. These are going to go like this to the outside. So I'm kind of keeping the dark blue to the center and light blue to the outside on this one, with that sort of, what do we want to call that, chartreuse in the middle, because these each have bits of that sort of a bright yellow color. There's a little bit of yellow in some of these. This has the yellow. So I sort of like how that all came together. So what I'm going to do now is trim this and trim my pieces and press everything and sew it together. And what we do is that row goes together, and then this row goes together, and the same down here. So we're just going to sew them across, and we can change stitch, and it's going to go together really quick. So there we are. Everything looks wonderful. I'm liking how this is turning out. It's actually a lot of fun to make a single block because you don't have a lot of one thing to do. I sort of like mixing it up along the way. This will be fun. All right, let me show you how this looks when it's finished. And I just wanted to show you how the assembly's going. Notice that these blocks are sewn together in small units to create a 9 patch. So initially I was thinking about just doing individual strips, and then of course I read the directions, and it did suggest doing it this way. And I think because of this center block, that probably makes it the easiest, and it just worked out well. This way you can focus on your points in each of these smaller pieces and then put the larger rows together. But I really like how this is coming out. The low volume in the background looks good, and I like the faded blue out there, so I'm really happy with this. Let me go ahead and finish it, and I'll show you what the finished piece looks like. And here's the first part of the second block. It's all half square triangles except for the center, which is a solid square. And it goes together really quickly. It's an easy block to put together, and you put it together as a 9 patch. So you do your rows first, and then you join these 2 together. We'll add that one, and this is what we get. So let's put this one up here. There we go. And so once these are sewn, then I'm going to put that together, and this is what our block will look like. I really like this wraparound look. And it's a lot of fun. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, how much fun we can have with this. And, putting lots of blocks together and either making a border or, designs within the quilt, just run some strings of these or I just think it's a lot of fun. So I'm really excited about this and I'm good to go. So I'm going to finish this up and then I'll show you what it looks like in the final together, the final press, and then we're good to go. You'll go ahead and get yours done. Now remember, we need to hashtag these on Instagram, and I will get all those together and put them down in the description so we all get our blocks together in the same place. And it'll be fun to see what everybody else is doing because there's a lot of other people doing this. And I think there's maybe a dozen different folks that are, or at least 6, that are putting together the patterns. I know there are others out there, but I don't know exactly who is doing it for this particular round. It's all in the blog post, which is on moda.com, and go to resources. And when you go to that page, it shows you everything that you need to know and how to download your patterns. And I really hope you get involved with this and do some of these blocks with me. It'll be a lot of fun. And then when these all get put together into a big quilt, oh my gosh, that's going to be so much fun. Okay, so let me go ahead and get this finished. I'll be right back and show you. And we're on our way. Here's my finished block. I love it. It is such fun. I like the bright friendship star in there against the dark lattice that goes behind it. They sort of like they're woven ribbons. I think this is wonderful. It's a lot of fun. It went together easily. And I did want to also let you know, you want to trim your blocks. What I appreciate about this is that the dimensions given are for slightly oversized blocks. So your half square triangles and flying geese, you're going to have a little bit extra for trimming so you don't have to worry about coming up too short. A lot of times that can be a problem when you're working with triangles like that, but not in this case. And the patterns already have that figured into the calculations, into the sizes, and that just makes it so much easier. So there you go. This is it. So here's my block number 2 and block number 1. So it'll be fun to see how all these go together in a quilt. And now I need to go make my little ones. I'll show you those next week. But in the meantime, get yours finished.